Hey everyone, welcome back. In this video I want to talk about checkout dives. This is a topic that's come up recently in my little circle of diving. I want to talk about, are they good, are they bad, why do them, the different types of checkout dives. Is it a checkout dive or a checkout dive? Yeah, that's it. So let's get into it. Alright, so checkout dives. Are they good? Well, in my opinion, yes. You have to think of them as, something for you to make sure that you have everything that you need and you're prepared to do that dive. An example being, we quite often travel overseas to Egypt or to wherever, and we pack all of our dive gear several days in advance. Then we jump on an aeroplane and we travel to whatever destination happens to be, let's say Egypt. We get off the plane at Egypt. I think our plane that we normally take gets there at like 3 a.m. So we get up the next day, I don't know, whatever it happens to be, 10 or whatever. We start putting our gear together, then we go for a dive, and this is just like a shallow dive. And it's a good opportunity to see that you have all of your equipment. I'll be the first to admit that I've been to places and I've forgotten stupid stuff. And then I start putting everything together for a checkout dive and go, oh, I forgot fins, for example. Hasn't happened for quite a while, thankfully. But we all have, that chance to make those mistakes, that we forget something small. So those checkout dives where there is a really easy shallow dive, and they're normally done on a house reef or something super easy, that in my opinion is amazing to make sure that you've got all of your I's dotted and your T's crossed. You have all of your equipment, everything is in working order. It may also be that you go from diving where I dive a lot in freshwater lakes to somewhere that's really salty like Egypt again. So obviously weighting is an issue. If checkout dive, you also can drain your cylinders to make sure that you have enough weight. You can do all of these little bits and pieces to make sure that all of the rest of your dives on the trip are going to be great. Because you've had that opportunity. You're not just, okay, wake up, throw your gear on the boat, let's get to a dive site. You're doing a 40 meter dive, whatever. And you get there and you go, oh, I don't have this, or I don't have that, or I forgot that, but I threw my dive gear bag on the boat and I don't have it. So, normally at that stage it's too late to go back. So then you just sit on the boat for the day, which is not ideal. So I'm a big believer in checkout dives, even if they're for just me. Some dive centers don't require you to do checkout dives, and that's cool, but I will always opt to do like a nice easy shallow dive as my first dive, just to make sure everything is where it should be. Another thing with a checkout dive, again, this is dependent on what type of diving you're doing. If you're diving, just yourself, or you're diving with a dive center, or your instructor is taking you, or whatever it happens to be, it gives you the opportunity to also see the dive guide or the dive shop in action as well. It's something, like I said, something that's super relaxed, super easy. So therefore, you can make that little bit of a mesh with your dive guide or your dive instructor or whomever happens to be, your local knowledge. They can see your abilities in the water and you can see their abilities in the water. They therefore probably will have a little bit more trust in you, because they know what you're capable of doing. They know how you react, especially if you spend some of that dive going through some basic skills for yourself. speaking of myself, I would say that I'm a fairly experienced diver. I'm an avid rebreather diver, and I do a lot of decompression dives. Even in my local lake, normally if somebody asks me to go, I will opt to do a 50-meter decompression dive, because that's just what I enjoy. I enjoy, you know, the long silences at decompression stops and the meditation, the sort of that component of it. So for me, that's what I opt to do. But still, if I was to go there and do those, I would still make sure that absolutely everything that I can do with the equipment that I'm using. So I would always do a few basic skills. You know, moving from here, which I think currently our lake temperature is, I don't know, 4 degrees or something like that, and then moving to somewhere that's warm, obviously my hood size changes, for example. So therefore my mask strap may have to change. All of these little bits and pieces can help make, you know, the rest of your dive trip so much more better if you take the time to find these little things that may have to change, that you may have forgotten about. It could be that you go from a really thick undersuit, like you would be, you know, if you're diving here, to somewhere where it's a really thin undersuit, and therefore you might need a trim weight somewhere, or you might need to not have that trim weight. These are all little bits and pieces you can figure out on that checkout dive. However, there are downsides to this. Some of those downsides being that you may go somewhere that with an agency certification that isn't as well recognized as some other agencies. Even though your training might be far superior to some of these other agencies, they may not accept your qualification, or they may say, okay, but you don't have a logbook, so we want you to do a checkout dive in the pool. These are the ones that I sometimes get a little bit iffy about. Not because I think that it's a bad idea if you haven't been diving for a long time to do a checkout dive in the pool or somewhere that's really confined and really simple, but there may be divers that don't keep a logbook, so therefore they don't have that you know, that paper proof that they did a dive last week or 2 weeks ago or whenever it happens to be. Those are the ones that I get a little bit iffy about. But as I said, I'm a semi-experienced diver, I would say. I can normally tell if somebody hasn't been diving for a long time. I've seen people put gear together all sorts of crazy ways, and I mean crazy ways. You would have no idea for some of them. So you do learn, you know, to see these things as an instructor or as a dive master or even somebody with a little bit more experience. So you should be able to pick, you know, the people that you think are going to need these times. Even if you do a really shallow checkout dive in open water, as again, like a 5 meter, 10 meter dive, somewhere that's really, really confined, really easy to manage, you should be able to see that these people have severe issues. But even before you hit the water, you could probably see that these people are going to have some problems. So it's a little bit funny. Yeah, so, you know, you can sort of skirt around having to maybe do those checkout dives in the pool if you opt to do it under supervision, if they really insist on it, on a nice shallow reef dive, and just going through the skills yourself without being prompted. That will normally show the mark of, you know, an experienced diver, that you're comfortable enough to just do these things without being, you know, prompted to do them. And, you know, like I said, giving that little bit of faith. All right, so this was just a super short little video. It's just a topic that sort of came up in, you know, the conversation in our circle. If you do like this video, like and subscribe. If you have any video topics you'd like me to cover, or at least think about, hopefully I can cover them, then I will leave the Google Drive link underneath the video. Just fill it out. You can fill it out anonymously if you like. Send it through. I'll do my best to try and cover it in an upcoming video. And yeah, any feedback, tips, anything you want to say, let me know in the comments. And yeah, I'll see you in the next video.